The difference between the two in the striking range, Zhang Weili tends to walk her opponents down because she's very quick reactively. She's very strong in her counters. She uses a skip inside low kick a lot of the time to kind of coax her opponent out and engage them in the fight. And from the skip inside low kick, then she'll drop down into hands and then into clinch if the range is closed down quite quickly. But she's quite happy to push forward and quite happy to stand her ground as well when her opponents step into range. So this is where Rose can kind of lead the dance a little bit, because what we saw in her fight against Andrade, what we saw in her fights against Joanna, is that she's got excellent management of range laterally. She moves laterally very nicely, light on her toes, bounces in and out very well, kind of what I was talking about with Masvidal as well. Alters the range between her and her opponent really well, which forces them to step into range when they feel like she's moving away, and then she can bound back in and catch them with shots. She's got a very long left hook. And I think that's going to be a good counter for a lot of the switch lead kicks that Zhang Weili uses. She uses a switch inside kick, inside low kick a lot of the time. She's also got switch body and switch high kicks that she'll use, but she does tend to leave her head on the center line. And what we saw when she fought Joanna, and what we saw earlier on, I think it was Danielle Taylor in her debut, because she leaves herself on the center line, sometimes her opponents can commit to punches and come over the top and knock her off balance. And this is where Rose's grappling comes into play, because she's got great rear naked chokes. What is it, 5 rear naked chokes on her record? She's got the most finishes in strawweight history as well. I mean, she's got lots of different ways to finish this fight, and very underestimated striking still after knocking out Joanna. 5 rear naked chokes on her record. Oftentimes, these rear naked chokes come from scrambles, though, as opposed to her taking a fighter down and dominating them. Knocking them down with a head kick, for example, or scrambling to their back when they're still standing and finishing the rear naked choke there. These are better options for her than trying to grapple with Zhang Weili. I don't think it's impossible for Rose to take Zhang Weili down, but I think it would be an unnecessary waste of energy. I think she can find ways to Zhang Weili's back without really having to try and wrestle too much. Climbing up, taking her back, sinking her hooks in, or perhaps hurting her, knocking her down, and then jumping on her back. There's one other scenario as well, which I keep seeing in my head when I play this fight through. Now, Zhang Weili throws a lot of spinning back kicks, and very rarely do they land. She stands in a stance, she tries to get her opponent to circle onto them before she spins and tries to catch them in motion. But it's kind of hit and miss, literally. Sometimes she does miss. The danger with spinning back kicks is that a confident opponent that reads your timing will be able to step in close to your hips as you've got your back turned. It's a good way of nullifying the kick, which they'll teach in Taekwondo classes. But in a grappling sense, in a mixed martial arts context, stepping into that range to then clinch, get your arms around somebody, get a body lock, climb up them, maybe even trip them to the floor so you can jump on their back as they're scrambling to their feet. These are circumstances where Rose might be able to engage the grappling without dealing with the 100% takedown offense of Zhang Weili. I definitely think Zhang Weili, she's a very physical fighter. She's very strong. You can see that in her build. Very well balanced physically as well, upper body as well as lower body. Rose is far more light in her movement, far more elastic, but that allows her to, like I said, spring into range, land her shots, and then bounce out again. The other thing we have to consider as well for Rose is that Zhang Weili's power leg is the lead leg, it's her left foot, which means that the majority of the kicking attacks for Rose will be coming off that lead foot, which it's faster, but it's not necessarily the most powerful. But one thing that Rose does do really well is a chop low kick. I mean, we saw a high kick against Michelle Waterson, but that chop low kick is a perfect counter once Zhang Weili's thrown her low kick. She can counter it as Zhang's trying to recover her balance. Sometimes it might force her to take an inside low kick to chop her rear leg into Zhang's lead leg, but it would be a good counter to those kicks, and because it's Zhang's strongest leg, that would be a good way of nullifying it. Now, I think a lot of people going into this fight are expecting Zhang Weili to be be quite comfortably controlling and pressuring all the way through it. But it's Rose's management of range and lateral movement that will make the difference in this one. And if she can apply that, then it doesn't mean that she's not going to grapple at some point in the fight as well. Because, as I said, closing distance, trying to wrestle with Zhang Weili is going to be challenging for her. There's no need for her to, kind of expend that energy. This is a 5-round fight. She needs to pace herself. If she gets locked up with Zhang Weili and has to engage her strength to counter, then she's going to exhaust herself much faster. And when she does find herself into the clinch, she's got 2 things to watch out for coming from Zhang. One is elbows on the break, which she's very effective with and has not landed anything quite as clean as I think she's going to at some point in the future. And the other thing is the reap on the outside leg. Oftentimes that body lock is so strong that she's able to just control the upper body of her opponents and outside reap, trip them from the outside leg, and then she's immediately into half guard. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see Zhang Weili approach this fight from a grappling context, especially if she's struggling to close the range against Rose. From Zhang Weili's perspective, I think she can walk herself into range, feel like she can cover the majority of the shots coming from Rose while she's being pressured, and then, maybe strike to clinch, inside low kick to lead hook to clinch, knee, outside reap, or then elbow on the break. Majority of her takedowns will be upper body, so I think that might be another opportunity for Rose to scramble and get to the back.